Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about Peri workout nutrition, which is your pre, intra, and post workout nutrition. And this is pretty important, with our diets. We, because we're pretty big on that. This is not a concept either one of us, came up with. There's a lot of information out there. It's just something we, spend a lot of time researching, looking into, and we think it's best. So I brought Peyton along for this segment for this reason alone, because he spent 3 years in the supplement industry. He knows a lot about good quality supplements, and he's pretty knowledgeable when it comes to nutrition. He actually prepped me for my first contest. So the first question that I want to ask you, that I actually get a lot, is a lot about pre-workouts. What kind of pre-workouts are best, and kind of their importance level. And you and I both know how important it is, as far as training goes, to have good meals in before you train. So let's talk about, pre-workouts and their importance and relativity to actual pre-workout meals prior to training.
Well, to be brutally honest, a lot of pre-workouts and supplements you're going to find through the supplement industry are nothing more than just a glorified caffeine drink. Like, they will have, stuff that gives you energy, things that make you feel, hyped up and good. And there are things that will help with nutrient transportation, but end all be all, there's no point to that if there's no actual nutrients there to transport the way we need them.
Right.
So a meal, if we're getting the right nutrition from that, will always trump a good pre-workout.
Okay. So we talked about the importance, or the priority is, the pre-workout meal over a pre-workout.
Absolutely.
They serve two different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, let's talk about, the pre-workout meal, the pre-training meal. Give us an idea of, give us an idea as far as, the importance of macronutrients required to go through, a pretty intense training session. Because ultimately, you want it to be intense for, regardless of your goals, it's got to be intense. So let's talk about that.
Well, definitely, it's very important that actually all three macronutrients are present. The ones that we do want to see the most bulk, obviously, they're going to be carbohydrates and proteins. Carbs, I typically go for more of a simplistic source, something that's going to be more like rice-based. Like, I'm a huge fan of things like cream of rice, because you can easily mix all macronutrients together.
Right.
And I'll typically have a bit of whey isolate in there for something that's going to be sitting light, quick digesting, but something that actually keep us in a good muscle building environment.
Right.
We'll also add a small amount of fat through like almond butter, peanut butter, something like that, just to make sure that the actual carbohydrate is going to be sustained to keep our blood sugar more elevated, so we don't go hypo.
Okay, and then let's talk also, because you are going to eat differently, than a female who's untrained. I'm going to eat differently than a male that's untrained. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about ratios, because it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. Well, typically I feel like the grams of fat would be pretty similar for everybody, because I keep them a lot lower myself. I'll have maybe 8 to 12 grams of fat, nothing more.
Right.
Like, I'll have as high as 90 grams of carbs pre-training. But say like an untrained male can have maybe 40 to 50 grams, something that he'd be a bit more appropriate for him, because he won't need as much glycogen. He can't use his body's stores near as well. Right. So same thing for a female. Like, obviously she's going to have less there, less overall muscle, less overall glycogen to be used. So maybe as low as 20 to 30 carbs pre-training for her. But it just really depends on the person, how trained they are, and so this needs to be analyzed carefully.
Great, cool. So you mentioned whey isolate, which is something I wanted to talk about, because another question that I'm always hit with is, what kind of protein do you take, bro? And that's something, one thing I've always prided myself on, even when I first started training, 3 years ago, is buying quality stuff. So let's talk about, first let's just talk about like a whey isolate versus just any kind of protein, okay? Let's talk about that, and then let's touch on quality, because, and I know that's a huge issue in the industry. So,
especially in the supplement industry, where anybody can change any sort of small thing just to make a few extra cents, make their profits larger, there's a number of things you can find wrong with the type of protein. But first off, the biggest difference between a whey isolate and just any old protein, Generally, what you're going to find is going to be a blend. It's going to be typically what's called a whey protein concentrate. The biggest difference between that and a straight whey isolate is literally the grade. So what I mean by that, I'm sure that a lot of people watching this, they've bought like ground beef before. Like you can go to the store, you see different grades. You see 80-20, 90-10. Whey isolate is anything that's going to be higher than 90-10. So essentially there's 90% protein, there's going to be 10% of lactose and fat left in there. So obviously if we're getting anything less than isolate, it can be as low as 50-50 grade, even lower. So if you're just buying any whey concentrate, they can be very untruthful with the actual amount of protein in there. It's just because it's 25 grams of whey doesn't mean you're actually getting 25 grams of protein.
Right. So you touch on that. Amino spiking, pretty much what that's called, where and you see that more and more. If you follow and study, if you look into your supplements, you'll see people getting hit with the amino spiking.
Absolutely.
A lot. Touch on that just a little bit.
Well, essentially, one of the most expensive things we come across is actual grams of protein. Like whey isolate itself is going to be much more expensive than buying any sort of a free-form amino acid. Amino acid actually makes up a gram of protein. But say there's ones that are super cheap by the pound, things like taurine, glutamine, things like that. So they can say that they're throwing this alongside the protein just to make it, make it look better. Like, oh, we have 5 grams of glutamine with every scoop of protein.
Right.
The thing is, though, that whenever they're actually testing the amount of protein per scoop in there, it is counting that glutamine. The way they test it, it just bounces off all amino acids present. So essentially, it could say there's 25 grams of protein, you're actually only getting 20 and 5 grams of leucine.
Right.
So it's just really how it's tested. They can be very untruthful with the actual amount of protein you're getting.
So, so with that being, and that's actually a bigger issue than most people probably care to believe or want to believe. So, again, you worked in the supplement industry for 3 years. Why don't you just kind of give us a list of the top 3 to 5 whey isolates, or just protein in general, that you would use, or you would have your clients use?
Yeah. Well, generally, it's pretty, once again, you just got to take a good look at the ingredients, make sure there's not a lot of free-form added aminos. If you are, maybe a couple of BCAAs, that's going to be, if anything in there, some BCAAs are going to be what we're looking for. But I traditionally use Dymatize ISO 100. I like it a lot. I like Formula 1, chocolate flavor in that one I use a lot. Or maybe even something like ISO Pure or Isoflex I like a lot too, Biomax. Those are a lot of my favorites.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of the pre-workout meal, a pre-training meal. This one in particular is actually one Peyton described. This one in particular is something John Meadows put together. It's what he calls a concoction bowl. So it's not anything that we've come up with on our own. Definitely something that's really good though. What you'll start with is a cream of rice. I'm anal, so I keep mine in a large container. I don't like having boxes around. You'll just take out however much you need. I'm not going to tell you how much I use because that's classified information. You'll add your cream of rice. And what you'll do basically is you'll have enough, however much you put in there, you want to cover it at least in water. You want to cover it completely because cream of rice cooks differently. What I'm going to do is probably put mine in the microwave for 1.5 to 2 minutes. And I'm going to check it every 30 seconds to make sure that it doesn't get too hard. This is the texture that I personally like it at. To where it's still, I like to call it almost like brownie batter or like cake batter. So now what we're going to do is add our whey isolate. Again, I'm not going to tell you how much I add because that's confidential. This particular protein is isopure, it's 0 carb. If you read the ingredients list on the back, which is explained, it's a protein isolate, microfiltrated whey, protein isolate, ion exchange whey. So it's pretty quality stuff here. Next, what you're going to do is add about a tablespoon of almond butter or peanut butter. Today I'm using Skippy Natural because it's off season and it tastes better. And then, if you would like, something John Meadows also recommends is sugar-free chocolate syrup, which is pretty good addition. You can find that at Walmart or Trader Joe's or wherever. Okay, so this is a concoction bowl, and now all you're going to do is just basically just stir it up. And when you're done, it'll literally taste, depending on what flavor of protein you get, literally tastes like a dessert. Probably let mine cook just a little bit too long. So what I'm going to do is just run it under just a little bit of water. You don't want to use too much water, or it gets runny and soupy. So it'll be all right. Here you go. That's how you make the cream of rice meal. Great pre-workout meal. It's got high in protein. It's got a little bit of fat and high in carbohydrates, which is what you need for a really intense training session.